In his third year as Cardinal head coach, Don Coryell faced a totally different challenge. Well, the task was now to keep the team on top instead of striving to get there. The year before, the Cardinals had shocked everyone by winning their first division title in 26 years. And each man on the team realized that the element of surprise would be gone in 1975. But in the new season to come, St. Louis would actually improve by winning 11, losing only 3, and capturing a second successive NFC Eastern Division championship. But it didn't come easily. 8 games, all but one of them victories, were decided in the last minute as week after week, St. Louis fortunes dangled on the second hand of the stadium clock. Because of this nerve-wracking habit, the team became nationally known as the Cardiac Cards. The opener against Atlanta was a weather vane for the Cardinals' last-minute lifestyle. Terry Metcalf scored the first touchdown of the new season, but behind rookie Steve Bartkowski, the Falcons led 20-13 late in the fourth quarter. Then quarterback Jim Hart beat a blitz and passed to Earl Thomas for the tying touchdown. This score set up a field goal try with merely 3 seconds showing on the clock. Jim Bakken's third field goal won the game as time ran out. St. Louis had scored 10 points in the final 4 minutes for their first victory of the year, and the team's tantalizing trend of last-second success had begun. Game 2 was in Dallas for the traditional hard-hitting rivalry with the Cowboys. After a first-half defensive battle which left bodies strewn about the field, the Cowboys led 7-3. But in the second half, the wraps came off, and the 2 highest-scoring offenses in the East exploded for 7 touchdowns. Mel Gray's last-minute catch ended a 52-point scoring avalanche and left the game tied at 31. But the first overtime game in St. Louis history had a disappointing ending as an interception won for Dallas. In a wild game that both teams deserved to win, sudden death had ended in defeat for the Cardiac Cards. The next Sunday, back home against the Giants, St. Louis finally had a breather. The Cardinals stormed to a 23-0 halftime lead, paced by a blistering ground attack. For the first time in the Big Reds' history, 2 running backs rushed for over 100 yards in the same game. Terry Metcalf's 109 yards were nearly matched by Jim Otis, who thundered through the Giants for 101. In a game that was as much a tribute to their superb offensive line as to Otis and Metcalf, St. Louis defeated New York 26-14. Next on Monday night in Washington, the Cardinals resumed their heart-stopping heroics. 3 times they fell behind, and 3 times they came back to tie on big plays by Mel Gray and Terry Metcalf. But a 17-point tie was broken open in the fourth quarter when Washington scored 10 points to win. With a record of only 2-2 after 4 games, the Cardinals' ability to win their division was very much in doubt. The comeback came against Philadelphia. The big play was replaced by a ground-hungry attack led by Jim Otis and highlighted by brutal blocking from every member of the offense. It allowed Otis, Metcalf, and Steve Jones to run wild as the Big Red displayed newfound running depth and set a Cardinal record 278 yards on the ground. The victory over the Eagles was the start of a streak that would reach 6 games. The next week, the big play was back as New York nemesis Mel Gray devastated the Giants with 7 catches, 2 for long touchdowns. In his 5 years in the NFL, Mighty Mite Mel Gray has caught 10 touchdowns against the Giants. In this game, the defense played a vital role by intercepting 3 passes, 1 each by Larry Stallings, Ken Reeves, and Norm Thompson. It was number 43, Thompson, who made the biggest play of the day, when with New York 10 seconds away from tying the score and forcing the Cards into overtime, the Big Red cornerback stole Craig Morton's pass to save the game. The next week against New England, the defense again saved the day, this time on an interception by Pete Barnes on the last play of the game. In the 24-17 victory over the Patriots, Terry Metcalf scored all 3 Cardinal touchdowns as St. Louis won its 3rd straight and vaulted into a 3-way tie for first place in the NFC East. Game 8 was a rematch with the Eagles, who led 23-7 midway into the 3rd quarter and were driving for more. Then the Cardinals' all-pro cornerback Roger Worley made a vital end-zone interception, and the offense ignited at last. The trigger man was Jim Hart, who got perfect protection for the 7th time in 8 games and shredded the Eagles' zone with pinpoint passes to 7 different receivers. When Hart scrambled out of his pocket and into the Philadelphia end zone, St. Louis trailed by only 2 points. The Eagles continued to be victimized by the Hart attack, which began a 66-yard drive that consumed nearly 8 minutes of the final period and featured still another extemporaneous run by Jim Hart, this one for a crucial first down. With only 3 seconds on the clock, it was left to Jim Bakken, having his finest season in 14 as a Cardinal. The man they call Bags calmly kicked the 30-yard field goal that won for St. Louis. In an incredible come-from-behind victory, the Cardiac Cards had continued to live up to their nickname. Seven days later, the opponent changed, but the script remained the same. With first place at stake, St. Louis fell behind the Redskins early. Then, with their penchant for drama, excitement, and cardiac arrest, the Cardinals added Washington to the list of last-minute victims. Trailing 14-3 late in the 3rd quarter, the Big Red attack came careening downfield on the lethal passing partnership of Jim Hart and Mel Gray. Hart's strike to J.V. Kane brought St. Louis closer. But on the next series, his perfect scoring pass was dropped in the end zone. Now, with 25 seconds left, it was fourth down. One last chance for St. Louis to tie the game. Amid the deafening din of Busch Stadium, the scene was set for the most controversial play of the 1975 season. With the Redskins claiming incompletion and the Cardinals claiming touchdown, confusion reigned supreme among players, officials, and fans alike. After a lengthy summit conference, the officials ruled a St. Louis touchdown. The Cardinals had dramatically tied the game and sent it into overtime. Washington never saw the ball again. Using Jim Otis on 8 carries, St. Louis moved 55 yards downfield against the Redskins' proud old defense. On the last play of the game, Jim Bakken, as he had done to beat both the Falcons and Eagles, kicked the winning field goal. In their second overtime game of the year, the Cardinals had a wild 20-17 victory and sole possession of first place. The next week against Joe Namath and the Jets, the Cardinals at last got out in front early and stayed there on 3 long scoring plays. Norm Thompson went 61 yards for the Namath interception, and Terry Metcalf burned a blitz by going straight up the middle for 52 yards. Jim Hart and Mel Gray continued their success against New York teams by combining for 2 touchdowns, as St. Louis easily won its 6th straight, 37-6. On Thanksgiving Day against the Bills, the Cardinals' 6-game winning streak came to a sudden end. 7 turnovers contributed to a decisive defeat. The loss dropped St. Louis into a tie with Dallas for the division lead and set up a showdown for first place the next week with the Cowboys. Determined to avenge their overtime loss to Dallas, Don Coryell's game plan was to go for the big play right from the start, to get as many points as possible against the doomsday defense. Behind the long-range bombing of Jim Hart, the game was never in doubt. The Cardinals scored touchdowns 4 of the first 5 times they had the ball, and Hart's brilliance was helped immeasurably by great catches. The most spectacular was an unbelievable reception by Terry Metcalf, who took the ball between 3 Cowboys. The offensive explosion gave St. Louis a commanding 28-3 halftime lead and allowed the Cardinal defense and special teams the unaccustomed luxury of protecting a large lead. In the second half, great coffin corner kicking put Dallas in a hole, and the Cardinal defense, with a strong rush on Roger Staubach, kept them there. Roger Worley intercepted 3 Staubach passes, 2 of them in the fourth quarter, as the Big Red won their biggest game of the season. The tie for the lead in the NFC's Eastern Division had been broken. St. Louis was in first place to stay. The next week, in the wind and rain of Chicago's Soldier Field, Jim Otis ran for 147 yards to go over 1,000 for the season, and the Cardinals rolled to a 34-0 lead. With old pro Jackie Smith returned from an injury and halfback Steve Jones playing in the place of Terry Metcalf, St. Louis buried the Bears and clinched the Eastern Division title for the second straight season. Against Detroit in the season's 14th game, Terry Metcalf returned to the lineup and set an NFL record for net yardage. Jim Otis won the NFC rushing title, breaking a team record while doing it. Against the Lions, rookie Jerry Latin became the third Big Red runner to go over 100 yards in a game. It included the longest run of the season in the NFC, as the Cardinals won their 11th game, most ever in St. Louis, and matching the record of the 1925 and 1948 Chicago Cardinals. The playoff game against the Rams was the last game for the Cardinals. Following the finest season in St. Louis history, the team laid an egg in Los Angeles. 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns were the key plays as the Rams erupted for 28 points in the first half. Throughout the game, there were ample signs that this indeed was not to be the Cardinals' day. The odds were overwhelmingly against them, as they had all season. The Cardiac Cards refused to give up and came roaring back on the wings of their explosive offense. But the Los Angeles lead was insurmountable, and for the second straight year, the Cardinals' season had come to a sudden, disappointing end in the playoffs. For the second year in a row, the Cardinals' offensive line led the entire league in protecting the passer. They allowed only 8 sacks, tying the NFL record. And depending more on physical power than finesse, they consistently gave Jim Hart extra seconds to release the ball. A measure of their success was that the entire right side, center Tom Banks, guard Conrad Dobler, and tackle Dan Deerdorf was named to the Pro Bowl. Number 72, Dan Deerdorf, at 6'3", 280 pounds, is one of the biggest and best offensive tackles of the game, and was again named All-Pro. Next to Deerdorf was Dobler, with his reputation as the meanest man in football. The line escorted a ground attack consisting of the classic halfback-fullback pairing, Terry Metcalf and Jim Otis, the sports car on the Sherman tank. Otis, in his 5th season, broke out to smash John David Crow's rushing record, gaining 1,076 yards and leading the conference with his straight-ahead power running. Behind Otis and Metcalf was a third back, Steve Jones, a smart, shifty runner who used his blockers well. All season long, Jones particularly excelled in the tight situations when crucial yardage was desperately needed. But of course, the big story was Terry Metcalf, the pacemaker for the Cardiac Cards. Despite special attention by enemy defenses, Metcalf set a new NFL record for combined net yardage and became only the third player in NFL history to score touchdowns 5 different ways. Like a runaway pinball bouncing through defenses, Terry Metcalf terrorized opponents each time he touched the ball. Against the Rams in the playoffs, Metcalf had one of his greatest days, accounting for 229 yards. But so furious was his futile effort, he spent much of the second half behind the Cardinal bench, hampered by severe leg cramps. Metcalf's courageous performance symbolized the fate of St. Louis this bright December day in the Los Angeles Coliseum. Though behind from the beginning, the 1975 team, known as the Cardiac Cards, never gave up until the final gun.
Even though we were behind, our people had the competitiveness to really come back and battle back, and I actually thought we had a chance to win the ball game. And even the last seconds of the game, our people were playing with as much intensity as if the game depended on making that touchdown. I'm very proud of them for that. They've been that way all year long. They're a great group of men. Put everything they've got into everything they do on every play, no matter who we're playing and who's ahead.
Coach, what about the Cardinals' chances next year?
I think we're a developing team. I think we'll continue to get better. I bet we'll be better. Be better every year.